Just to introduce myself, my name is Russell. I'm the founder here at Tailored Fundraising, and joining me are a few others from our team. Marianne is in Ireland. She'll be co-leading with me this afternoon. It's actually her evening. Hannah, which all you One Collective people who are on the call know, is in Indiana. She's going to be running the chat and the Q&A. And Kavina is running polls from the great state of Oklahoma. And unfortunately, she's not going to keep her video on, even though she's the coolest one on this call. So we're excited to be with you and look forward to the next hour. We're going to be looking at when and when not to have a fundraising event, how to engage financial partners before, during, and after an event, and a clear breakdown of pre-event, event, and post-event goals. So like I said, we have a lot to cover. This particular webinar is particularly applicable to some larger events that you might have, but definitely be listening for things that you can apply to smaller events, maybe at somebody's home. And if you have questions about that, please feel free to ask. We want to hear from you during this webinar. So at the top left of your screen, you should see a chat button. This is where you can tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and put any other comments you want to share with us throughout the call. The other button I want to draw your attention to is the Q&A button. If at any time you have a question, please put that in this box. So comments go in the chat and questions go in the Q&A, where Hannah will be answering questions or fielding questions. This is a live webinar. We can all learn from each other. So let's ask as many questions as you want. We'll do our best to get to all of them, either live or via text. We'll also be giving you a poll question during the webinar to get feedback around your fundraising experience and goals. And we'll try to take a little bit of time for each of you to begin making a little outline of a plan of your fundraising event in this hour. So make sure you have a space to make some notes, or a computer, obviously have a computer, but somewhere to write notes down.
All right. So what is the purpose of a fundraising event? Many people think that a fundraising event is a silver bullet. All we really have to do is put together a party that promotes our very worthy mission, hand out response cards, and count the money, right? Well, maybe in a few rare cases, but in most cases, it's important to consider the purpose of the event and the true cost of putting it together. Believe it or not, the purpose of a fundraising event is financial partnership. At the end of the day, our fundraising event has to be something that brings in funding. And we really want it to bring in enough funding to warrant all the time and the work that the event requires. So there are valid reasons to host an event. We can expand our network through an event, announce a new program or a strategy, or simply show appreciation for our financial partners. However, in our experience, your event should focus on only one thing. So if your reason for the event is to raise funding, we need to design the entire experience around maximizing financial partnership. We also need to understand the true cost of the event and if it's worth it compared to other events that we can do. So for example, one of our past clients held an annual dinner gala that raised $50,000, and they used to do a softball tournament that also brought in $50,000. The tournament took months and months of planning and hundreds of man hours to pull it off, whereas the gala only took about a month to plan and a couple of dozen man hours. So by simple math, we can see that the gala is a much better fundraising strategy. And when we look at the true cost of hosting the event, the man hours put in, and the opportunity costs of other things that didn't get done because of a heavy focus on the event, often it's not surprising to find our fundraising event isn't as successful as we might have originally thought it would be. After a proper evaluation, we might find other activities that start to look more worthy after we understand the true return on investment of our event. Remember, funding is the main purpose of a fundraising event. We shouldn't expect a fundraising event to raise money just because we've brought together certain ingredients in the same room, any more than we would expect a beautiful wedding to result in just getting a bunch of people and an engaged couple in the same room. So, just like a successful wedding is the culmination of a whole lot of investment, commitment, and relationship, a successful fundraising event is only the culmination of a whole lot of investment, commitment, and relationship. Traditionally, fundraising events have been seen as a one and done type of contact. And this is usually because we view it as this one time experience. But for long term partnership, fundraising events have to stop being seen as one big push for the year and be seen more as a culmination of conversations that happen all year round.
Yeah, that's so true. And you know, talking about identifying the goal, let's dream and plan about what a smart event looks like, whether it's your first time or your 50th. So we're going to walk through an important list of 5 questions and give you some time to actually answer these questions yourself. And you want to have all of these answered before you take any other step in planning your event. So it might feel like a lot of information to sort through, but there's a reason to answer all of these right up front. So bear with us, give us a thorough answer as you can. Sorry, bear with us. Give us as thorough of an answer as you can during the webinar and continue to flesh it out afterward if needed. So the first thing is, who is your target audience? Let's give you a few seconds to write this down. Is this open to everyone? Are you targeting high capacity financial partners only? Are you wanting to reach out to those who are already familiar with the ministry or those who are not? Fundraising events don't have to be open to everyone. You can create specialized events for a smaller group of people and still have success. So who is your target audience for your fundraising event? For one fundraising event, we were able to coach someone through. Their target audience was simply everyone at their church. So it made very narrow. If you didn't go to church there, then we weren't focusing on getting you into the room. So the next question is, what is your target audience's giving capacity? So if you know, do you have it somewhere where it's easy to segment the invite list by capacity, because you probably want to? If you don't know their capacities, how can you find out? The giving history, the current giving history that you have on them is the best indicator of capacity at your event. If they've never given to your organization before, you should treat them as having the capacity of maybe an average initial gift. The exception is if you have a specific strategy to reach out to new high capacity individuals. So what is your target audience's giving capacity? And the reason why this is important is because your event goal should not be $1 million if the people in your room only have the capacity to raise 50,000. Now that's an extreme example, but that's why it's important to understand the capacity. And you can't know everyone's bank account, but you need to make some reasonable choices, okay? So the third question is what problem will be addressed with the funds raised? Can you accurately and honestly describe this? What change will they make in an individual, they being the funds, individual and or community? And how can you represent a funding plan that people will want to invest in? So impact flows most freely when it's the only thing, funding flows most freely when it's the only thing holding you back from impact. Side note, it's kind of funny. Marianne and I, before we got on this call, we're talking about brain freezes, and she said sometimes she has those, and I was like, oh, I'll help you out. And now I'm the only one having brain freezes here. So anyway, maybe I need Marianne to step in.
No, you're great. You're great.
This is being recorded, so everyone from now on forever is going to hear me say that. Okay, so it's just so important that people know how funding is going to make a difference. Okay. Number 4, how much money will you need to raise? Don't just see how much you can raise and then plan your actions based on that. We're not saying, okay, this is the capacity of the room, so let's just make that our goal. What are you wanting to raise funds for? How much is that going to cost? you may want to include the total cost of impact, but definitely be specific. So it may seem like question 3 and 4 are the same, but it's not, because we're solving a problem that doesn't have to do with funding. It's just what problem are the funds going to address? But then number 4 is actually how much does it cost to address this problem and make a difference? Now, number 5, how will you package the offer to become a partner? Are we using printed items, online presence, in-person conversations, meetings, the event itself? So just think about how you're going to package that, how you're going to present that. I've seen at an event, printed materials can work really well. I think it's just what people are expecting, and that's not a bad thing to have something printed for them to fill out. At fundraising events, a lot of people bring their checkbook, where they would never bring a checkbook anywhere else, right? Okay, any questions up to this point? Hannah, do we have anything rocking and rolling in the Q&A, or are we good?
We're good.
Okay, great.
Okay, so sections and categories. It is critical to have a plan for success before you start executing the event. One of our former clients held an event for several consecutive years and had raised about $15,000 at their best event. The year we started working with them, they raised $90,000 with less people in the room. And it was all because of the things that we're talking about here, thinking through, making a plan. So even if you feel overwhelmed, please hang in with us. In the future, you'll have the right strategy for your event and the key steps when the time comes to implement it. It's a lot of information, I realize that, but you'll catch up, I promise. A fundraising event has 3 vital sections where you need to evenly distribute your time. So 1/3 of your time goes to the pre-event, 1/3 of your time goes to the event itself, and 1/3 goes to the post-event activities. So we're going to break all of these down in detail in a minute. Within each section, you have 4 categories to flesh out to ensure focus, clarity, and success. So first is messaging. What is getting communicated verbally, in writing, online, visually, and in all of the prepared audio and video that you're going to share? Do they all communicate the same thing? What is your messaging? Then we have logistics. What is your budget and what resources are available now or need to be found? What can you get donated so that you don't have to purchase them? So for example, do you have a church that can donate the event space possibly for you? Somebody that can donate food or the printing? Then we have strategy. So this is all about donors and dollars. How will you identify and connect with each financial partner? And is there a clear process to follow up on pledges and receive donations? Follow-up is so, so important. And finally, your team. Each task should have a person's name next to it. It's vital that you identify your team in each section long before the event takes place. Ideally, it's going to be people who are specifically gifted in those areas and not just blanketed, all hands on deck kind of approach. So now we're going to have a poll question for you. Which of these most reflects how you've spent your time on a pre-event, event, and a post-event activity for your last fundraising event, whether it be big or small? So again, which of these, if we want to go ahead and put that poll question up, which of these most reflects how you've spent your time on pre-event, event, and post-event activities for your last fundraising event, whether it's big or small? I'm not seeing that. Is that up there? Do you guys see the poll question? You're on mute. Russell, you're on mute.
Is that you or is that Kavina?
That's Hannah.
I like the music, Kavina.
Okay. Well, we're going to get that poll question there up in just a second. So let me just go ahead and read it again. So we're going to ask you, we're going to give you examples of 5 different things, and it's which of these most reflects how you've spent your time on pre-event, event, and post-event activities. So for number 1, this is just an example. Number 1, you've spent 0 time on the pre-event, 100% of your time on the actual event, and 0 time on the post-event. Does that make sense? So go ahead and take a second and answer that.
I was actually the one who had to launch the poll. Surprise.
Awesome. All right. How long do these normally take to answer? 10 seconds.
Yeah, we are approaching a minute and we just need some time for some more.
Great. So I hope this makes sense to everyone. Like the top one would be 0 time on pre-event, 100% of your time on the actual event, and 0 time on the post-event. Just some examples.
Okay, I'm going to close out this poll and then share the results. The majority of people spend most of their time before the event. I can envision that. I can envision that. We have one person who spends equal amounts of time. Okay. Great. So here's the pre-event breakdown. Messaging. This is your beginning chance to set the tone. So remember the impact the funding will make. Your theme and every communication thereafter really should match. Theme is the first thing. Look at your goal and what you're raising money for and plan around that. Are you raising money for buildings? Choose a theme that talks about structures, curriculum that changes hearts. Transformation might be your theme. It's helpful if the first word of your theme starts with an ing. I'm just learning that from another consultant that I'm working with on a $10 million campaign that he always uses ing in his first word for themes, and it tends to give some momentum with the people you're inviting to be a part of it. So based on your theme, you're going to come up with just 3 points that will be reinforced throughout your event in every format you use to communicate. And these are the key points you want your attendees to remember after they leave. So we saw an event where the group had a theme of broken lives rebuilt. So they shared testimonials and they created centerpieces out of affordable pottery that was still pretty, that they had shattered and glued back together. All of it was subtle, but they conveyed their theme of broken lives being rebuilt. And as you think about the message and the methods, make sure you build in the appropriate level of urgency as the time goes by. For example, share vision, information, and testimonials throughout, but make sure that the end of your night has an "if we don't act now" statement. The feeling of urgency should peak at the event. The next thing is logistics, and be specific. First, the venue. It sets the tone. Your venue should convey the level at which you want them to contribute. It may be a home-hosted, a church-hosted event. A church-hosted event set a different tone than a rented facility with catering. They're all viable options. Just consider what you're trying to achieve and what makes sense for the attendees. Parking that has valet or self-parking. And especially if the self-parking is easy to do, makes a difference in how people feel. And it be feelings of positive or negative. If I go to a fundraising event and I think you're wasting money on valet parking, then we got a problem. If we go to a fundraising event at this really nice venue and you're thinking, and the attendees thinking, why is there not valet parking? Then there's a problem too. So just got to think, put yourself in the shoes of the person who's attending. Food is going to be sit down buffet or desserts only. And again, how much can you get donated there? What about the music and sound? What kind of background music you're going to have? What's on stage? What speakers you're going to have? What computers and video are you going to have? This should all be asked about the venue specifically. So you know what they have available. So side note, don't forget computer adapters. A lot of times your system might not match theirs. Timing, check to see what else is going on at the same time you're wanting to have an event to make sure there's not something that might compete with your event, like the Super Bowl or spring break, things like that. Where I'm from, not everyone, a lot of people take beach vacations in the month of July. So July is really just not the best time to have a fundraising event. When you think about logistics, like I said, it's helpful to start putting yourself in the shoes of an attendee who's coming, from the time they get in the car to the time they return home. Just visualize yourself leaving the house, finding parking at the venue, walking in the doors as a financial partner, sitting through the event, and leaving to head home. When you've had a good fundraising experience, there's a clear purpose in each piece and how it connects to the impact. No piece should distract people, including yourself, from the impact. And maybe you choose to only serve hors d'oeuvres instead of a full meal, so more funding can go towards the ministry instead of the event. Let people know that. Tie it to impact. The next piece, strategy. Have a list, start conversations early. Identify who you want to have at the event and connect with them before the event to share what the ministry is doing to raise awareness about the fundraising event. For some, you may ask if they would consider a specific dollar amount or range before the event. Whether they give it right away or at the event itself doesn't really matter. So don't get caught up in the timing of the guests, but focus on connecting early and asking them to lead the way. Ideally, you want to have 40 to 60% already committed before the day of the event. A lot of times people aren't going to give to their full potential as far as capacity unless you ask them individually to do so. Especially those high capacity givers, they might sit in a room and think, they might sit in a room and think, yeah, I can give a generous gift, but everyone else is going to be giving generously too. So I don't need to go crazy and give the most I possibly can. But if you sit down with them one-on-one and talk about them leading the way in solving this problem together, and you can say at the event, we've raised 50% of our goal already this evening. And if you would be generous this evening, we could reach 100%. So that's a strategy that we've really seen work. And getting funding ahead of time can take pressure off of the event itself, because you're not left wondering if it's going to be worth it. It can be really wind in the sails instead of not. And the event is truly a celebration, not a stressor. Events stress me out. So having half of the funding already raised sounds awesome to me. You're going to use tools to manage who is coming, or RSVPs such as Eventbrite. And there are easy, free ways to allow signups online. You can change attendees, even assign seating and printed tickets. Follow up on invitations to attend. Continue to call and ask for commitment to attend right up to the week of the event. You may even want to call each attendee to thank them for attending the upcoming event. I can't tell you how important it is. If people aren't in the seats, it's going to be very challenging to have a good fundraising event. So don't sit back and hope that people are going to sign up. You're going to be emailing, you're going to be calling, you're going to be texting, you're going to be emailing, you're going to be calling, you're going to be texting until you get as many people in those seats as possible. Okay. The last thing is your team. Choose your team carefully. And I know this sounds ambitious, but try not to give any person on your team more than one role. That may not be possible, but we find it helpful. Number one, to have a communication lead who will be in charge of guiding the rest of the team through creating the message and ensuring everyone is on the same page. So each piece of communication is aligned with one another. Two, a logistics coordinator should lead from a high level, even if others are doing pieces of it, making sure no item has gone overlooked. A fundraising lead should be making sure the pre-event asks and determining the specifics of the giving actions. Every detail is important in this case, as you want to lower obstacles to partnership. Sometimes the smallest thing will affect how someone will respond, especially within a group dynamic at an event. So getting that invitation right. Set regular meeting times to check in on progress and the alignment of the agenda to make sure everyone is on track and has the support they actually need. So that is pre-event.
Okay, now we're going to be breaking down the event, starting off with messaging. You will have prepped these all in advance, but here's what should be created for the event. Handouts, visuals, and scripts for all speakers. All speakers should have a script of what they're going to say, and they should practice. No matter how many times they've done public speaking, practice on site with the AV equipment is just really the best way to go. Then we have logistics. Yeah.
I just want to reiterate what you just said. You are going to have somebody who says, I don't need to practice. I do this all the time. I don't do well writing out what I'm going to say, blah, 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 blah. Just say, I understand, but for my peace of mind, would you mind just doing it this time? Because,
you don't want them going off script.
No, because
or off message.
Right. What you're saying up there needs to be very calculated. There have been a handful of times, less than a handful of times, I've seen a very talented speaker go off script and it was better. But I'm telling you, that's not going to happen to you. So get your speaker to have a script, practice on the AV. Thank you.
Yes, no, totally, because language is super important. And we have a particular language that we want to convey, and the speaker may not know what we're going for with that. So absolutely, thank you for jumping in. Next is logistics. Keeping all of your details straight in a run of show document that has a minute-by-minute schedule of what is happening and when and who is the point person for it. So I don't know if you all have seen, sometimes churches will have run of show documents and they have 2 minutes for prayer, 3 minutes for announcements, so on and so forth. So you want to have something like that. Make sure that you have a point person for it. Make sure that you finalize it 24 hours before the event, and print copies for all on-site leaders so that there are no questions as to what happens. Meet with all of your staff and volunteers on site several hours before the event time starts so that you can pray and walk through the timetable. Then the sound check for the event. Background music, on-stage mics, speakers, and video should all be tested, of course. We've been to an event where they were careful to make sure the music could be heard from the back, but then they failed to think through what that meant for people at the front. And it was so loud that most people were avoiding those tables, and they couldn't even have a conversation with others at their own table because the music was so loud. So just think about how each part of the room is affected. Strategy. Back to partners and funding. Is it clear what my gift is going to do? It needs to be so clear what they are giving to. Impact needs to be more specific than just your organization or your annual fund. Ideally, the impact presented has clear details, has a specific action in a specific place for a specific time. Test the clarity of your impact by asking, can I communicate when and how this was accomplished? And is the ask an actual invitation to give now? So this is one of the most important parts of the event. The language is very key. Your ask should assume that people are going to give. You're going to want to stay away from if language, if you choose to give tonight. No, instead you want to assume that they're giving. Assume that they're all giving and say your gift tonight. So language is super important. How are people going to give? Is it a pledge card? Well, where is it? Where are you going to put it? On the tables, on the chairs? Are there pens available? What do they do when they're done with it? You should have a clear designated time where people are walking through this process together and you're guiding them step by step. Is it a texting app where they're going to need their phones? But if they don't have a phone, do they have options? You want to make sure that giving information is handled responsibly. And you want to be able to know who attended and who gave what amounts.
Okay, so I'm going to unpack this just a little bit, Marianne. So again, you're spot on. Don't use if language, use your gift tonight language. More reason to have a script if the person who's speaking, and I would rather have like the executive director give the ask than a speaker, but sometimes it's really effective to have a peer, like a board member who gives high capacity gifts to make the ask. But in that case, they're not if they're not like the executive director, you're going to have somebody up there who doesn't know how important it is. And we as coaches know that every single word of an ask is important. You know, when I coach somebody, I say, you can like share your heart and you can, be you during this. But when you get to the ask, I want you to say it exactly how I told you to say it. Exactly. So that's important. So let's talk about how people are going to give. It might sound silly, but we are talking like you need to talk like you're speaking to kindergartners. My wife's a kindergarten teacher. So I might say something like, in the middle of the table, there's a basket and it has an envelope for everyone sitting at the table. If each one of you right now would take an envelope and take a pen, and then just open that envelope for me and take out what's inside. And you're going to wait. And then you're going to go through the giving instructions. Okay. You're going to say, we need you to put your name and your address and your phone number and your email address. It's all really critical information. And then you have 4 options. You can give at this level, or this level, and that's what it's going to do this evening. Or you may feel like the Lord is asking you to give way beyond that. If you'll just write that in there, and then you can put a check right there, or you'll see a QR code on the giving card, and you can use that to give. So I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes, to fill that out. Music comes up and you wait. This is the expectation you're giving tonight, right? So we just wait. And then 2 minutes later, say, great, now just put that in the middle of the basket. And then somebody's going to come by and collect all the baskets. So that's a way, but I'm very, very specific. Also, Marianne said, you want to make sure that giving information is handled responsibly. And so people are going to feel maybe a little uneasy about their giving information being in the middle of a basket for too long, in a basket in the middle of a table for too long. So you want to have somebody who's assigned to go and get that as soon as that's done and we're closing up things. You need to know who's taking the money and where it's going to be counted, and that there's more than one person in that room, preferably 3 people in that room. And this is all about financial accountability. Okay. So there you have it. Just wanted to give some really detailed things because this part of the event is so important. I think it just fall off the rails real fast. Okay, Marianne.
Yes, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much. It's really great advice. So lastly, we're going to have team. Only one person should be designated to make changes on the fly. So that's going to be the person who has been point on planning, the person who is keeping time, who is managing the rest of the team and running the specific parts of the event. And you're going to go ahead and expect something to go wrong because often it does, and you need to have a backup plan if it does. So maybe the video doesn't work, maybe not enough meals show up, and what if bad weather, traffic stops volunteers from arriving? You're going to need a backup plan for these kinds of things.
All right, so the post-event breakdown. So be as clear on the back end assignments as you are on your front end assignments, meaning you're going to make this whole plan before you get started. So you're going to have a post-event plan before you even start, right? So messaging, again, you should have already planned these with due dates, teams assigned, but the challenge here is to make sure it's executed as you planned. So be timely and engaging. Thank yous need to be sent within 24 hours. Studies have shown that donors who receive a thank you within 24 hours are not only more likely to give again, but they give at a higher capacity than those who don't receive a timely thank you. Timely follow-ups make a huge difference. High capacity partners, whatever you deem that high capacity to be, should get a phone call from the executive director or a board member within 24 hours. This is another factor that is shown to make a difference in the retention and longevity of a financial partner. So you don't have to share what you raised. You can if you want to, but you absolutely should communicate the impact that will be made through the funding. So you've said, hey, if you give, in the event you say, if you give, this can happen. And after the event, you say, because you gave, this can happen. And you're like, well, I already said that like 3 times. Yes, you did. It's amazing because they're only going to remember it after the 6th time. So we're not even there yet. Okay. We don't want to celebrate money necessarily. We want to celebrate what it's able to achieve, right? So next is logistics. No one likes cleanup, but the better you can keep your relationships with vendors and your materials to be used for other events, the more value you get out of an event. So pay your vendors on time. Thank what's called in-kind donors. So if somebody gives an in-kind gift, that means they donated the space, they donated the food, they donated the printing. That was their kind of donation. Thank them. Appropriately store and catalog what you have so it can be used again. Strategy, immediate stuff. Count money responsibly. I've talked over this a little bit. Cash checks quickly, super important. You don't want somebody checking their bank account 2 weeks later and wondering if that check was cashed. Get receipts out timely. So completing the impact is important. Depends on the impact, but you want to communicate what was accomplished and reference the event. So completing the cycle of your problem, solution, you made a difference, creates trust and allows you the credibility to introduce a new problem, perhaps even a bigger problem in the future. So when you are completing the impact that you said at the event, you're going to say, hey, do you remember, or here's what happened. It's amazing. Remember, this is what we raised money for at that event. And it was so important. And God did amazing things. Next is team. Debrief with your team. This should be scheduled long ahead of time, so you're not just pulling it together. What went well? What didn't go so well? What can you do differently next time to make it better? Honestly ask, should we do this again? Don't assume it has to be an annual thing. Document this somewhere, easy to find for future reference. Recognize how much your team put in to the event and affirm them. Acknowledge their hard work and give them time off. Seriously. Again, this should be planned in advance. So at this point, your fundraising lead's job kicks back in. If you have any new donors from the event, you'll want to initiate a plan to get them through a second gift in the next 3 months. You'll have a lot of relationships to continue to thank and begin learning why they gave to your organization. So that is pre-event, event, and post-event. Luckily, we're going to be sending out a lot of this information to you in an email. I don't know if that's coming out today or tomorrow, but I want to pass it over to Marianne because I've been talking for a while.
Well, we do have some questions.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so one from Eric. He said, can you do a fundraising event for raising more partnerships, both financially and prayer? And that kind of goes with another question that says tips for an event where it's monthly giving rather than one-time gift. Okay,
got it. Let's address the first one. We know that prayer is super important. However, you can't do both. And I'm going to make a blanket statement. You can do both, but it will affect the outcome of your event. The reason why is you're going to ask them to opt into both. If you ask somebody to opt in to both, they will choose one or the other. Not all of them, but they will choose one or the other. So I would have a different way to onboard prayer partners as well as financial partners hoping that they be the same people. But if you're going to have an event, do not ask them to opt into more than one thing. Funding is really the only thing you're asking them to do, and that you should only ask them to do, unless you have an event for another reason, which is fine. But an event should have one call to action, and you're asking them to do that right then. What was the second? Oh, monthly versus one time.
Monthly versus one time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have a quick thing about this. So
Yeah.
this goes back to language. So people are assuming, a lot of times people assume that a fundraising event is a one and done thing, a one-time gift. You know, they write this big check. It's all about language. If you are saying from the stage, and you prep it beforehand as well, hey, we are looking for monthly partnerships. We are looking for ongoing partnerships with you. It's all about your language. So if you prep people ahead of time, and you let them know that that is what you are wanting and that is what you desire, then they're going to be prepared for that as well. Anything to add for that?
Yeah, I just don't know why you would have an event that you would focus on monthly partnerships, unless, and I'm kind of thinking out loud, like a child sponsorship program would be a reason to do that. Otherwise, so our goal, and Marianne, you're completely right. If you want monthly partnerships, that's what you need to be communicating, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I think in most cases, I would only communicate the problem that we're trying to solve together up front, and maybe even how the difference we might be able to make together. And then it's really a fundraising event is about funding. It's okay to say, if you partner with us at $50 a month, this is what can happen. If you give $5,000 tonight, this is what can happen. A lot of people ask me this question about monthly versus one time, because they call it one time. At Tailored, and our coaches would refer to it as annual, because it is a repeatable gift. But that kind of gift you just need to ask for again every year, and that's okay. Okay, so I would just be asking why you would want just a monthly a fundraising event just for monthly partnerships, especially when, if I want to give $5,000, $6,000, I really don't want to sign up for $500 a month. Seems like a bigger commitment than just writing a $6,000 check that I already have waiting. So hopefully that answers some. And if you want to illuminate that, whoever asked the question, I'm happy to answer more.
Yeah, well, I see interest in maybe distinguishing, if their focus is on monthly partnerships, how would an event benefit that? Or how would that be possible? Or do you just simply see more success with a specific project and a certain amount you're trying to raise?
Is that a question or is that a comment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there any clarification around that?
Is the question why you, okay, say that again?
The benefit. So have we seen success in doing an event for monthly partnerships, or is it simply events should be focused then on one time or project based?
Well, definitely, I think you can do it something monthly. I haven't done it before, but thinking through it, you can do that. I wouldn't like focus the event on how often you give a gift, right? That's just a really bad reason to go to a fundraising event. Is, I do want to give something to somebody every single month. I'm going to go to this fundraising event. But like I said, if you're going to child sponsorship programs or a feeding program or something like that, the other thing you can raise money for a project, but you don't have to. You might have a smaller ministry that maybe your annual budget is $250,000 a year. You can raise money for the ministry, but the communication doesn't need to be about the brand or about the organization. The communication is, what problem are we solving together? What could we do in the next 12 months if we had this funding? And let's get this funding and see what God can do with it. So that's how I'd answer that. What else? Actually, let me pause.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm going to ask a question of everybody who's attending right now. What is something in this webinar that has been helpful for you? If you would put that in the chat, love to see that. Choose panelists and all attendees, and then put that in the chat. What is something in this webinar that has been helpful for you?
Budgeting and the correct ratios of time. Yep.
For sure. Staff's
All of it.
capacity.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Doug.
Thanks, Doug. All of it.
Follow plans. Yep.
Yeah, planning's so important. I mean, if you have a plan, so much less stressful. Starting conversations early. Love it.
Gosh, so many.
I
Awesome.
know. Yeah, we're going real fast now.
I know.
Eric, not sure because I don't feel like you were high on monthly giving. It's not that I'm not high on monthly giving. I just am not sure that the whole event should be, the purpose of the whole event is for monthly giving. If it is, just have a good reason for it. In any event, I'm going to ask for, in any fundraising event, I'll ask for monthly giving or a single gift. So sorry if I threw you off there. Monthly giving is very important. You can definitely ask for monthly giving.
Okay, awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you for putting that in. Yep, great. So as we mentioned earlier, some of you may be thinking that this was really helpful, but I'm going to need some help implementing these ideas. There's a lot of content, a lot of information. So implementing these ideas and reaching my funding goals. Maybe you would like to talk through some of these things with a coach, one of our tailored coaches. If that sounds like something that you would like to do, Susie, one of our coaches, would love to talk with you for a few minutes. Go ahead, Hannah, please put that link to Susie's calendar in the chat. And if you guys would like to just click on the link in the chat and find a time that works for you, Susie can get with you and you can talk through some of these things with her.
Sorry, Marianne, that link is actually not a link to her calendar. It's just a way to it's a way to message her. So if you'll send her a message, you may want to let her know what times you're available, but she'll definitely email you back. Becky, thank you so much. We feel awesome too. So, hey, do we have more questions, Hannah? Because we'll stay on.
Yeah, we do have a couple more that I think would be, this was from an anonymous person, but I thought it was a good point. They said, what if I don't have the contact information to big givers? How do I communicate with them beforehand? So they're planning to do an event. How do they get in communication?
So we're talking about how do we even get people to the event? Because we don't have a way to contact them.
Right.
Okay. Marianne, I said I wouldn't throw things at you like this, but do you have an answer for that?
I mean, I guess my first question was, well, then is it not like, is it some random person that you just happen to know of, you know, or if you know of a potentially big donor, I'm wondering you know, you'd have some kind of a contact like in between, like somebody that you know of somebody that knows this person. That's what I would be thinking. I mean, is that, I don't know whoever wrote that, but
I will say I have a good solution. Honestly, I'm not just saying this. If you'll contact Susie, she can help you work through that. Just that very specific question. She can help you work through that. Because I think Marianne and I have a lot of questions about that question. So I think it'd just be easier if you contacted Susie, and if that's okay, because she can totally help you with that.
Another one from Richard Brown, who says, do you recommend cold calls?
I don't really recommend cold calls. There's a book on our website called How to Get More Funding Without Adding More Donors. Because most of the time we're not doing the right things with the donors that we have. I would recommend getting that ebook off of our website. Instead of cold calls, I think I would recommend an advocacy strategy. So how can you create a message that is so short and so powerful that you can ask key people to invite others to this event that you don't know, but that we'll call them a table host. I don't know if I haven't done an event with a table host really, but it would be a great way to network. A table host brings, is going to bring others to this event, to this fundraising event. And they have a way to say, hey, this fundraising event is about this, and this is what we can accomplish together. And we've got to solve this problem together. Will you come? By the way, don't do an event where it's like an admission event where you pay $100 a plate or whatever. You're going to get way less funding from $100 a plate than you are from a free plate of food and $100 a month. So please don't do that. So code calling, no, but I would do like an advocacy strategy or some type of like table host strategy where they're all inviting new people. But you have to give them really good messaging that's like literally like 60 seconds of an invitation. I might even write out the invitation for them. So
yeah, and we actually, and not to be redundant with the Susie thing, but we actually have an advocacy plan that Tailored coaches you around. So that would be a great thing to throw at her as well.
Mm-hmm. I see something about missionary specific fundraising. Is that where we're going next, Hannah?
Yes, and it's similar to, I see the other one again. What do you suggest for an event to acquire monthly givers? What's the best way to do that? And then an event for raising funds for a specific missionary.
Yeah, so raising funds for a specific missionary. So we sometimes we talk about stop raising money for yourself, because let's talk about the problem and the impact. So and Marion and Hannah, you might be able to talk to this a little bit more, but there's a really nice balance between I'm the one who's actually on the ground doing ministry, but funding me is not the goal. This problem of people not knowing the gospel or not having enough food to eat, and the solution of Jesus and his love and generosity towards you is the goal. So if I'm doing an event around a missionary, I'm going to lean really heavily towards that problem and the solution. But if you are raising funds for a missionary, there's got to be some like, hey, I am the person. You see my face. You know me. So Marianne.
Yeah. I see. I think that the missionary, the person going, is going to use that language again of the impact. And so whereas no, you're not supporting the actual missionary, you're supporting the impact, but you are through the missionary, right? Like it's kind of tricky, but I definitely think that when you stand up there, wherever you are, at the event, at the dinner, so many people have asked about the monthly partnership thing. Wherever you are, it's your messaging that's going to be so important. So if your messaging includes monthly partnership with you so that you can long-term serve this people group and explaining the impact of that, you certainly can implement the monthly partnership there. If you don't have an orphanage to build or a school or a church that you're trying to raise this money for, but you're really just trying to raise your support for you being there long term, then you're going to have to communicate that, again, highlighting the impact and why you're going to be there or move your family there or whatever the case is. So it's in the language, I think, what you are going for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Marianne, to Eric's question about what's the best way to acquire more monthly givers, I'm through an event. Going back to language. So whenever I talk through, okay, everyone, like we're talking to kindergartners, everyone get an envelope from the middle of the table and a pen. When you open that envelope, in there, you'll see a giving card or a brochure or something, blah, blah, blah. So Eric, I would just say, when you walk them through, you may want to only have options for them to give monthly, if that's what you really want, and say, for us to accomplish this together, we're asking people to commit to give every single month. And if you you can choose to give 50, 100, 150, 250, or if you like to give more every month, there's a spot for you to put that. So just be specific about what you want them to do. People will do what you ask them to do, basically.
And then to that, Russell, have you seen success in people that give at a big event that convert to monthly donors afterwards?
Sure. If that's your plan, part of the webinar was like basically having a plan afterwards. So how do you get the second gift? Maybe the second gift is a monthly partnership, but there's things in between that gift and that monthly partnership. There's a thank you. There's a your giving is making a difference. There is I'm getting to know you and you're getting to know me. We're becoming friends. And then there's the ask of, this is the reason why I'm asking you if you would consider to give monthly.
Pat Opal asked, should you ask for a certain amount or a range at an event?
I've used specific amounts. So like on a card, and sometimes there's a strategy of leaving the low end off, like leaving 25, 50 off, and leaving 100, 150, 200 a month. And then if somebody wants to fill in $25 a month, they can, right? A range, and that's kind of a range, right? The only other thing that I can see, I've never really seen anything else. I'm thinking of the different types of asks. That if you go to the website, there's a how to get a generous response ebook, and it has 5 different types of asks. But I'm not sure I'd use anything but that kind of. The only thing different I would use if I was in a high capacity giving like situation, like if it was just major donors, I might say something like something about being very generous or a very significant event from everyone this evening, a significant gift from everyone this evening. Obviously, if your goal is very large, then it kind of implies that the giving needs to be large too. So I'm kind of going around in circles here, but I don't think I can't see a reason why I'd say a range right now.
Yeah.
Tickets from Richard.
Yep. Are you talking about paid tickets?
Good question.
So if it was paid, what would you say?
No. I would say no. Don't have a paid ticket. Tickets, if you're like doing assigned seating, would be good. I would
like
say.
An event. What do you the event Bright?
Yeah, you can do
Eventbrite.
You can do tickets.
It's free.
They're free, yeah, like that. Becky, people don't want to RSVP. They don't want to RSVP they don't want to RSVP. So you have to make them basically. So you can do a couple of things. You can keep sending out an email that says, here's the link to RSVP. Really need you to. You can call them. This is what I would do when you're not getting responses. Call, text. Somebody says, I'm coming, then go online to Eventbrite or whatever and fill out the RSVP for them using their email address and their phone number, and it will send them the confirmation. Hey, you signed up for this event. So, but you confirmed it over the phone. They RSVP'd to you via text or over the phone. I know some people who that's the way they RSVP is like they set up the RSVP by say, hey, send a text to this number to RSVP. So what else?
We have one from Christina that she said, I'm doing annual event to raise for making our budgets, but how, I'm not sure how effective it is to ask every year the same thing. So what do you suggest?
I need to look at the question. Hold on.
And I can copy it over to the chat if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, so love your feedback on this, Marianne, but I'm thinking if you're not making your budget, we need to figure that out first instead of, so is an annual event the best way to raise funds for your budget and doing that every single year? Do you think it's a fair question, Marianne?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also I'd want to say, if that's not been effective, then we need to probably look at how the ask is happening.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different reasons. This is a good question. There's just so many questions to the question. So
because I don't think that I've ever heard of someone raising their entire budget every year at an event. Have you? Is that something that you have seen a lot of, Russell?
no, and I think what she might be saying, I actually just see Hannah's name. Whoever's asking the question, you can comment.
Christina Wing.
Only like, there you go.
Okay.
I think that's why everyone's asking for the monthly giving, only 30% of our budget from the event. Okay. I would be asking why you're doing the event. Honestly, for 30%, I don't know why you wouldn't be just going to people personally, unless it's like a networking thing. Gosh, Christina, you're going to think we're like just terrible people for like going blank on this. You are wonderful. Oh, Christina, I think you're wonderful too.
I mean, that's valid though, Russell. I mean,
Oh.
it's valid. The 30%, probably, I'm assuming maybe that she's really struggling to reach that that last 30%. And we all know, right? Like that is the hardest to get. That last 25% is the hardest to get. So don't be discouraged. You are in good company. It happens to everyone.
Right.
Christina. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, let's just talk about that. Let's not talk about the event. Let's talk about that. I'm frustrated because it's the last 30% of our budget. It's 30% of our budget every year. So really, I think let's take a step back, schedule a call with Susie and say, Susie, hey, I'm basically short 30% every single year. What can I do? So let's not talk about a fundraising event unless that's the best strategy. Let's ask the right question and say, I'm short 30% every year, or I have to raise 30% of my budget every single year, actively raise that. So what do I need to do? What's the best way to do that? And there are a lot of great strategies out there, Christina. So I can see how a fundraising event is frustrating you if it's not doing what you want it to do, but I'm not sure it's the right thing. There's so many things like asking people to increase $50 a month or $25 a month from what they're currently doing. An advocacy strategy that Marianne talked about, bringing on one new church partner at $500 a month. Where do you find that? How do you ask for that? All kinds of different things. So Christina, you think I'm wonderful. You're frustrated. I think that you should talk to Susie because she's wonderful and she'll make you less frustrated. So.
Do we have time for one more? And I'll copy that Susie's link again.
I'm staying on until we're finished, until everyone's questions are asked, unless it's like dinner time.
No, nope. We're good. We have another one from Christy Lafferty. Hi, Christy. She said, is there a point that an organization would not be ready yet to organize an event? Or is it just knowing the right type and size of the event you're ready for?
That's a great question. And let's see, can you read it again?
Yes. Is there a point that an organization would not be ready yet to do an event, or is it just knowing the right type and size of an event to be ready for?
Yeah, the reason why you wouldn't do a fundraising event is because it's not the best way to raise the funding that you need. Okay. So if you think people will give, if you think you can raise more money through a funding event, then do that. Let's read a comment here from Doug Ham. If you have not used the coaching, please sign up. It will be the best investment you can make for your ministry. Thank you, Doug.
Yay.
Oh man,
Yes.
that's awfully nice.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you have to determine whether or not that's just the best fundraising strategy. As I think as a general rule, it's not the lead strategy. No, as a general rule, it's not the lead strategy. So if you want to, raise money for this certain project or program, I don't think I would look to a fundraising event as the strategy. Marianne, what am I trying to say?
Well, I guess it's certainly a case by case thing, but I think that I think you're always going to, if you have something to raise, if you have an impact that you want to be, touched by, like what I was saying, a church building, a school, something a project, then yeah, you're going to figure out a way to do that in a right way, in an effective way. I don't think that somebody's going to be ready or not ready. I mean, you get yourself ready, or like the organization will get themselves ready with all of the, the materials that we've provided here, just the right kind of education around that. I think that you can get yourself ready. I mean, certainly you would have to do it in a timely way. I mean, it's not like you can pull it off a month from now, but if you prepare, you can get yourself ready.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a reason why you wouldn't do a fundraising event. A reason why you wouldn't do a fundraising event is you don't know the people that you're inviting, the majority of people you're inviting, because they're either not going to respond very well to coming, or they're not going to give at the capacity you think they should be giving at. Like it'd be a first time gift. The relationship between you and the person you're inviting to give is important. We've talked a lot about problem, solution, you made a difference, but relationship is important. When a missionary raises funding, they're building relationships, so having a relationship with somebody, an existing relationship with somebody in the room, or somebody in the room has an existing relationship with them, I think is really important. If you don't know the people at your event, it's going to be challenging to raise money. I've been in that situation. This is going to sound this. We was hoping to raise $5 million at an event. We raised $2.5 million. I know that sounds amazing, but we didn't raise the 5 because we didn't really know the people in the room. We were just meeting them as they were walking in, and so they weren't. They didn't trust us enough to give at the capacity that we knew they could give, right? So I think one reason why you wouldn't do a fundraising event is you don't know the people just quite yet. Unless you're good with, like, that's a place where you meet people and you're getting entry-level gifts. So another reason you wouldn't have an event is you don't have all the details, or it's a pipe dream. Like, if we raise this money, we'll do it. If we don't, then we won't do it. You've got to be able to follow through on what you're asking people to give to. And if you don't have details like how much it's going to cost or how it's going to be executed, then there you go,
So
another one,
Richard,
okay,
go ahead.
We have another one from Daniel, and he said, how do you decide, and this goes back to your subject when we were talking about communication before, so pre-event, how do you decide which current donors to communicate with before an event that would make up the 40 to 60% you said that give?
Yeah, you're identifying, basically my strategy is usually identifying the high capacity givers that you want to be there. So, the 40 to 60% will probably be 2 or 3 people, maybe up to 5 people who are going to be giving. Come to Alaska.
Yeah.
We'll do.
Can we all come, Becky?
I don't want to. I like Tennessee. I've
I
seen
wanna see the
Discovery
whales.
Channel. I know what Alaska is like, and I cannot. I
You're
couldn't.
landlocked.
I couldn't make it.
Hmm.
Okay, what else? We can't hear you. Yeah, we just can't hear you.
Hmm.
Still. But you look like you're saying something really important.
She's answered all the questions that we couldn't answer.
Yeah, right here.
Can you hear me okay?
No.
Now we can.
Now we can. We haven't heard a thing you said.
Technology fun. I was hearing myself great.
Yeah.
So this was another anonymous submission. More kind of a comment, but maybe there's a question in here to touch on. But she said that they are expected to do monthly support. Many ask them, what's your monthly support level?
Mhm.
And then it's hard to count those large amounts that come in. And because she's not really sure, are they going to give again? So when you're trying to get your budget, if that makes sense, you're working off of monthly donors, and then you get these big gifts, not knowing if they're going to happen again. How do you sort that?
Yeah. You want to take that, Marianne, or you want me to?
Yeah, I would say, well, you can respond to what I'm going to say. I would say ask them. You need to communicate. So first you're going to, if a big gift comes in, you're going to thank them, right? You're going to pick up the phone and you're going to say, thank you so much. And then out of that, it could be the conversation of, is this going to be an annual, would you mind this being an annual gift? Would you consider monthly partnership? I mean, it depends on your relationship with the person, but definitely start off by picking up the phone and thanking them for their generous gift. And then through that, you can have conversations. And really, most people are okay with direct conversations if you're confidently having them with them.
Mm-hmm.
Anything
Yes.
to add?
Yeah, for sure. So let's say they give a gift in March. I will probably create a communication plan specifically for that person, leading up to me making a similar ask or an ask for more in that first quarter of the next year, January, February, March. So I'm going to, once a month, I'm going to do something like Marianne said, I'm going to pick up the phone, call. I'm going to be texting them or calling them, asking how I can pray for them. I'm going to be sending them a voice message on text and saying, hey, this just happened. It was so exciting. Just wanted to share it with you. Financial partners should and can be your friends. Okay, so communicate as you are friends. So I would just create a communication plan leading up to the ask again. And that's how you know if it's coming again or not. It's one of the ways you can kind of count on whether it's coming again or not. So.
We're out of questions in the queue.
Good. Okay, well, that's good because I don't know if I have any more answers. It was fantastic to have everyone on today. And again, if you want to chat with Susie about your specific situation, just go to our contact form on our website. And we look forward to seeing you and talking later. Thank you so much, everyone.